Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome. Today we're having a community forum with the Eastern Regional Helicopter Council. Before we start the meeting, if we could all stand for the pledge, please. So I'd just like to announce a few people. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Laura Jen Smith. I'm the Riverhead Town Supervisor. We have Councilwoman Kent and my deputy, who is also liaison to our helicopter task force. We have Jeff Smith, who is the VP of Operations for Eastern Regional Helicopter Council. Today joining us also is Al Krupski, our legislator for Suffolk County. We have Scott Russell, who is the supervisor for Southold Town. Also with us today, we have Garrett Armstrong, who is with Senator Chuck Schumer's office, and Mark Woolley, who is with Congressman Lee Zeldin. If there's anybody I missed, please just let me know. The way we are going to run the format for this evening was there was cards to fill out outside. We will call people to come up. We ask you to time limit to 3 minutes. But we'll have you come up. If you haven't filled out a card, you can still do so. May will call people to come up so you don't have to wait too far in line. And then we'll have people speak as when they come up, and hopefully Jeff will be able to answer some of the questions. We also have our helicopter task force here I will do a small open presentation, and then we will turn it over to our task force to do some of their presentation, and then we will go forward with public questions for Jeff. So the way I would like to start is, I know this is a very complex subject. It has a lot of nuances to it with the helicopters flying around. So I thought in order for us to all start off on the same page, what I would like to show is just a short 5-minute video that's produced by the FAA, and it's the New York North Shore Helicopter Route Training that's produced by the FAA. So if you could just take a few minutes and look up at the screen, and we'll put that on. And we are joined by Councilwoman Jody Giglio also from Riverhead.
This training will help you identify and understand the procedures associated with new airspace rules in effect for certain helicopters operating along the North Shore of Long Island in New York. This training will also provide additional information related to the route in order to ensure pilots are knowledgeable of the rule requirements, recommendations to fly the route safely, and what deviation allowances may be available to you. The regulatory requirement for this route is contained in Title 14 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 93, Subpart H. Subpart H prescribes a special air traffic rule for civil helicopters operating VFR along the North Shore, Long Island, New York. The regulations state, unless otherwise authorized, each person piloting a helicopter along Long Island's northern shoreline between BP LYD Waypoint and Orient Point shall utilize the North Shore helicopter route at or above the altitude as published. The FAA recognizes the varying capabilities of helicopters, and this rule permits pilots to deviate from the rule for safety, weather, or when transitioning to or from a destination or point of landing. Under Section 91.3, the pilot in command is directly responsible for and is the final authority as to the operation of the aircraft. Therefore, if flight along this route places a helicopter beyond the auto-rotation performance distance to the shore, the pilot is permitted to deviate from the specified route and altitude. The mandatory portion of the route begins at VP LYD Waypoint, located approximately 20 nautical miles northeast of LaGuardia International Airport, and extends to the eastern end of Long Island at Orient Point. Since this route is a VFR route, all VFR requirements contained in Title 14 of the Code of Federal Regulations apply at all times. Therefore, it is important for pilots to comply with both Sections 91.103 and 91.113. Section 91.103, Pre-Flight Action, states, each pilot in command shall, before beginning a flight, become familiar with all available information concerning that flight, while Section 91.113 describes right-of-way rules and in part says, when weather conditions permit, regardless of whether an operation is conducted under instrument flight rules or visual flight rules, vigilance shall be maintained by each person operating an aircraft so as to see and avoid other aircraft. When a rule of this section gives another aircraft the right of way, the pilot shall give way to that aircraft and may not pass over, under, or ahead of it unless well clear. The New York helicopter route chart will be updated to depict the new route. Additionally, a notice to airmen, or NOTAM, will be issued and will provide the operational requirements and recommended safety procedures outlined in this video. The New York North Shore helicopter route should be flown as charted, which is approximately 1 mile north of the Long Island northern shoreline. However, for safety of flight, it is recommended that pilots using GPS or other similar equipment fly a 1/4 mile right offset when flying eastbound or westbound on the charted course to avoid potential oncoming traffic. Unless otherwise authorized or unable to comply with the new airspace rule for safety reasons, when flying between BP LYD Waypoint and Orient Point, helicopters are required to fly at or above 2,500 feet MSL. Please note that the rule does not require helicopters flying along this route to maintain exactly 2,500 feet MSL. Because this route does not list different altitudes for oncoming traffic, in order to ensure safe aircraft operations, it is recommended that pilots traveling eastbound on the route maintain odd altitudes in 100-foot increments at or above 2,500 feet MSL. Conversely, pilots traveling westbound on the route are encouraged to maintain even altitudes in 100-foot increments at or above 2,600 feet MSL. VFR pilots are cautioned that there are heavy concentrations of IFR jet operations between 2,000 and 4,000 feet in the same area as indicated on the Long Island helicopter chart. For this reason, it is also recommended that pilots monitor New York approach control while operating on the route and provide position reports in the blind to other VFR traffic on frequency 123.45 along the route. Finally, it is recommended that pilots and operators using this route make their helicopters as visible as possible to other air traffic. This could include installation and use of high-intensity anti-collision lights, turning on all available external lights, such as landing or taxi lights, even during daytime operations on this route, high-visibility main and tail rotor blade paint, and avionics supporting TCAS alerting and/or ADSB position identification. In review, the North Shore route is a VFR route, which means all VFR rules apply. Helicopters flying between VP LYD Waypoint and Orient Point should maintain 2,500 feet MSL or above and remain approximately 1 mile north of the Long Island northern shoreline. As with all visual flight rules operations, pilots operating on this route should be vigilant in their scanning to see and avoid other aircraft. Additional questions regarding operations in this airspace can be directed to your local Flight Standards District office. Thank you for watching this video and fly safe.
And then we just have one
This training will help you
more
identify and
slide we'd like to show. And Patrick, do you have the other? This is, well, and you can see from this slide, I know, Jeff, this is might be a little hard for you to see, but we can give you there you go. So that is what the FAA, and that's their flight guidelines that is given and for training for pilots. Yet when the FAA came out here in November, in reality, this is a 1-week snapshot of actually how the helicopters are flying, and you can see the green line, the neon green line, is what how the helicopters are actually flying, and each line is a helicopter, and that was just for 1 week in August of last year.
Those are only ones with transponders, because the ones without transponders, how could you tell where they went? Thank you.
Okay, but that is, we're gonna wait, as you can come up one by one, I'm just pointing out what was presented at the FAA when they held their, was supposed to be the public forum, but they did it more of a presentation. And just a couple other facts that I'd just like to bring out, just for in 2018, just some numbers that have occurred. The total helicopter landings and takeoff from the East Hampton Airport, and this is just from May to August, were 6,600. And in 2019, during the same time, it was 6,500. So there are quite a few number of flights coming out here. Many of you I know were at the presentation given by the FAA, and a lot of the reason for this transition that is occurring and the places that they're incurring were told to us that the Eastern Regional Helicopter Council was very instrumental in creating these transition lines that the helicopters are taking. So I just wanted to present all of that so that we're kind of starting out from the same page here with the information that we have. At this point, I will, Jeff, did you want to wait till they present and then just do questions and answers, or did you want to?
I can just do questions and answers.
Okay, so I will turn it over to our with Catherine or Jody, did you want to say anything first?
I'm gonna talk with them.
Okay, and we have Garrett Armstrong here representing Senator Schumer. Did you want to come up, and I'll let you come up and speak first, and then we can present from the Helicopter Council.
My name is Garrett Armwood, and I am here representing Senator Schumer. I just want to pass the message to the Eastern Regional Helicopter Council. East End residents' pleas for peace and quiet have largely gone unanswered by the helicopter industry. That's why I'm urging the Eastern Region Helicopter Council to hear these complaints now and make good on their pledge to fly neighborly by improving communication with these impacted communities and to provide more transparency on how the helicopter operators who violate the fly neighborly guidelines are held accountable by the Eastern Regional Helicopter Council. The RHC Council should also finally support the all-water helicopter route around Orient Point that I have long advocated for. We look forward to hearing your responses.
We're gonna,
We will let you come up one at a time.
we're gonna give everybody a chance to talk. We really want everybody to have an opportunity to have their voice heard. This is the Riverhead Helicopter Task Force, and I'm the liaison to the group. And they're each going to make a statement just to kick things off, and then we'll move over to questions and answers.
You can tell them.
One second. Yes, sir. Okay, good evening. My name is John Cullen. I am the chairman of the Riverhead Noise Task Force, dealing with helicopters and seaplanes. Tonight we're going to talk about tonight we're going to talk about helicopters. As Jeff Smith, Vice President of Eastern Region Helicopter Council, has agreed to come for a question and answer here at the Riverhead Town Hall. And thank you for giving me the chance to speak about the North Shore helicopter route, something I have been working on for over 10 years. This has not been an easy issue for me, as the helicopter business has grown beyond anyone's expectations and is still growing year after year. From 2016 to 2018, helicopters traveling to East Hampton Airport from New York City picked up 52%. And just this year, there were well over 300 more helicopters that arrived at East Hampton Airport, July and August. Year to date, as of August 20th, 2019, there have been 4,900 helicopters that have landed at East Hampton Airport. Last May, in the North Fork Patch, Eastern Region Helicopter Council committed to a 50-50 split, which lasted only just a few days. But Eastern Region Helicopter tried to do something to help Southold with the noise from helicopters. And yes, more helicopters are finally using the South Shore route. Jeff and I shared emails about the definition of 50-50. I was told his 50-50 meant 100% of the helicopters traveling to East Hampton Airport would take the North Shore route and transition right over to Riverhead under the green lines, which is exactly where I live. I am a bullseye gang, and that's why I'm here. Leaving, and then leaving 100% leaving west along the ocean. On August 16th, Jeff and the airport manager both told the East Hampton Airport Management Advisory Committee that the 50-50 was working. And after 1 minute of discussion from the audience, Mr. Smith had to admit it was not working. This year, the council decided to let pilots disperse their flights over Riverhead to help alleviate the pain on the main track, as you see. But with over 300 more helicopters, honestly, there was no difference whatsoever. I would like to read a list of the helicopters and seaplanes that went over my home in Northville and the hamlets of Jamesport, Laurel. And these crafts also went over many hamlets on the South Fork. Yes, our neighbors to the south are just as mad as we are about the 495 we have here in the sky. I'm sorry. I'm just going to read off. This is from 6:50 a.m. to 8 a.m. on August 5th, 2016. It was a Monday morning. 6:50 a.m., 6:55 a.m., 6:57 a.m., 7 a.m., 7:14 a.m., 7:18 a.m., 7:24 a.m., 7:26, 7:30, 7:30 and 30 seconds, 7:31, 7:32, 7:35, 7:40, 7:40 and 30 seconds, 7:41, 7:42, 7:42 and 30 seconds, 7:45. Excuse me,
So these were the helicopters flying over the
These
same
are-
path?
these are helicopters, but they are really, it's helicopters and seaplanes. 65% are helicopters. I just lost my page during that great run. 746, 747, 748, 802. Finally, a break starts, and I just said that's enough. That's more than enough information that I needed. And like I said, 65% of those were helicopters, and obviously the seaplanes have become a major problem also. But we're here to talk about helicopters today. Could you just go with a couple of pictures? These are pictures that I took from my computer, and unfortunately you can't see it right there, but in that circle are 6 aircrafts. They're 4 together right underneath, and they look like they're just piled on top of each other. We'll go to the next picture. Same thing. As you can see, they're in a straight line heading just as the green line is right over here, getting ready to transition over the North Fork, over to Southampton, and then over straight to East Hampton Airport. Next one. And that's what East Hampton Airport looks like at around 7 o'clock in the morning, because the airport opens up at 7 a.m. So everybody has to come in like a wolf pack to get their people and get them out of there as fast as possible. Sandy Mancini lives in Bridgehampton, and on August 16th, 2019, she witnessed a near miss above her home, a helicopter and a seaplane. They are 1 second away from having a mid-air collision, as I was told by Miss Mancini. The seaplane pilot made a strong turn to the right to avoid a near catastrophe. The airport manager was required to fill out a near miss form with the FAA. Just gotta find my spot here. Can you just go to the next picture, please? These are the oil tanks in Northville. From those pictures that you just saw before, they're about a mile or mile and a half from the pictures you just saw. Those tanks can carry up to 50 million gallons of petroleum. And if there were ever an accident there, it would be an environmental disaster for the whole North Fork. So I asked Mr. Smith, would you buy a home that has up to 80 helicopters a day flying over your house? Or let me rephrase it, that would you let your bride allow you to buy a house under these circumstances?
I live under the Linden route, which comes out of Newark, and the helicopters that go over my house are at 900 feet.
Okay. And then also, do you think your parents would like to hear the roar of double engine and single engine helicopters all day long? Would they like to purchase, would they purchase a house underneath?
You'll have to ask them.
Okay, I understand. Well, 15 years ago, I bought a house with 0 noise problems from the sky. And look what I have now. Why are the helicopters not flying the South Shore route when arriving and departing East Hampton Airport? The East Hampton Airport is 2.25 miles from the Atlantic Ocean. There's no reason why these helicopters and seaplanes, but helicopters, should be flying over 22 miles of residential communities when there's an all-water route leaving New York City, wrapping around up by Breezy Point, and banging a left and right down the ocean. Do you have an answer for that?
My answer has always been the same for the last 10 years. The southern route has
I'm
its
sorry?
for the last 10 years. The southern route has its complications. One, All the airspace in Long Island, Kennedy, Islip, West Hampton are all on the South Shore. The other thing is the weather. If there's any meteorologists, please step up. The weather typically is worse on the South Shore than it is on the North Shore. You can be in the sun in the North Shore, and it can be 0-0 in the clouds on the South Shore. The other thing is, if you look at the traffic patterns and the complexity of the East Hampton Airport, the jet traffic that comes in flies over East Hampton, goes out over the Atlantic Ocean, makes its descent, and makes a circle into Land 28. The seaplanes transition, and they use the southern part of the airport to do their traffic patterns and land. So you have the fixed wing on the South Shore, and you have the helicopters on the north part of the airport.
Well, as far as the helicopters transitioning or going through Kennedy Airport, my neighbor worked at the Tracon Center in, I believe it's Garden City East,
Westbury.
for over 30 years. And and he just recently retired. I asked him, have you ever denied a helicopter through the airspace? And his answer was yes. I have denied a helicopter through airspace on 9/11, when the horrible tragedy happened in New York City. I said, any other times? He said, yes, when the President of the United States plane is on the property, and he is also on the property also. Other than that, there has not been a problem going through Kennedy airspace. I also asked the gentlemen that were working at the workshop last year from Kennedy and LaGuardia if either one of them have ever denied a helicopter access through their property. And both of them said, no, we have never have. So my question to you is, if you're leaving New York City heading toward Kennedy and the airport guy says you can't come through today, what do you do? Do you turn around and start from scratch and go out the North Shore route?
If we can't go through at the airspace, of course we're gonna go around the airspace. That's
Okay.
exactly what we would do.
It's just amazing that I keep hearing Kennedy Airport being a reason why you can't fly the South Shore route. I hear the weather also. I was a lifeguard in West Hampton for 3 years. I was a lifeguard on the ocean. I saw the weather on the ocean constantly. You talk about the weather system all the time. I never saw the weather system like you see the weather. I'm not a meteorologist, but I know the weather very well. And I don't see the weather that you see all the time. When I call you and ask you for an explanation, I get low clouds, low clouds, low clouds. I just don't, I can't go with that. Why would people be buying all these $1 million houses down Dune Road to sit in the fog every day? It's just not happening.
So I just wanna make sure, you're telling me, what you're saying is what I'm saying is untrue.
No, I'm not saying it's not true, but when
Well, I don't-
it seems to be that
I told you what the reason was, I'm telling you what the reason is.
I'm telling you that when I was there, and I fish all the time. The skies are fine. I'm gonna say it's 1 in 20 days that the fog rolls in, if you want my say, and that's being generous. That's being generous. Finally, just last week, we saw a newspaper clip of a helicopter company being banned from East Hampton Airport for flying recklessly over the airport and giving a house a very low flyby. That kind of stuff just isn't right, as you know, and it shouldn't happen. But we're getting buzzed out here. Just 2 weeks ago, we had tornado warnings going off everybody's cell phone in the room, and helicopters are flying out of the airport, and helicopters were arriving to the airport within 5 minutes of both those things. And finally, I just want to say, as many know, this is a holiday, and it's also a time when many of our local neighbors have already gone back to their main homes, and their kids are back in school. I would like to thank the Supervisor, Laura Jen Smith, for having this meeting, and also like to thank Councilwoman Jody Giglio and Councilwoman Catherine Kent Smith for coming out tonight. I have nothing else to say.
Thank you, John.
Sorry. Dried up.
Good evening, and thank you, everybody, for coming out and showing your interest. I'm going to be very brief. I'm going to speak about aircraft noise and vibration. There is a serious public health threat that many Americans are exposed to every day, and that is noise. Noise is defined as unwanted sound. Aircraft noise is the most detrimental effect of aviation, along with vibration, causing risk for adverse health issues such as stress, anxiety, irritation, and heart-related illnesses. The vibration aspect is a measurable community annoyance, causing many homeowners to close their windows and turn on their air conditioning. It can also cause property damage. One member of our committee, who is here, had a retaining wall collapse. The repeated flybys can, and I believe are contributing to the erosion of our fragile sandy bluffs all along the Sound. Tougher and lower thresholds are suggested for aviation noise and the requirement to go more than 1 mile offshore. At an informal meeting in South Hall, Congressman Lee Zeldin touched on several issues during his opening remarks. One topic dominated the entire 90-minute conversation: helicopter noise. One resident who lives near a quiet preserve in Cutchogue said she counted 19 helicopters passing overhead during 1 hour on a perfectly sunny Monday morning. I think many of us in this room have experienced the same thing, or worse. Many times they are so low they are invading our privacy. Some people have asked what motivates pilots to use transitioning points, which are really shortcuts, over the North Fork. Is it safety, time, cost? They can get more trips in if they cut the distance, noting time and cost play heavily in the decision. And I have a question for Mr. Smith. I would like to know what happened to the premise. I believe I saw it in the original rule of transition over land to or from a landing facility may occur only within the borders of the town or hamlet in which such facility is located. What happened to that?
I don't remember that. Because I could tell you that the North Shore, it would never work if that was written in there for East Hampton, because the North Shore never touches the boundary of East Hampton.
Correct.
I'm just answering, I'm answering a question. I don't know where it happened to it.
Okay, thank you.
Sid? Sorry, Bob.
No, Sid goes after me. Sid, can we wait, because your questions?
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna wait on.
I'm sorry about
questions,
that, Sid.
remember?
My apologies.
All right, so I'm there? Okay.
It was your minute of exercise.
That's no big deal. Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert A. Skinner. I live at 14 Eileen Circle my wife and I live at 14 Eileen Circle in Jamesport. I want to make clear I'm not an official member of the Riverhead Task Force, but I have worked closely with communications with the federal agencies and with federal officials, and I'd like to say thank you for the FaceTime. We have emailed back and forth and so you remember roughly so we're going to skip right over that, and we're just going to go directly to the first slide, please. Now, this is the same chart that the FAA showed at their workshops. The 2008, I believe it was, that this was added to the Long Island route, if you will. Go to the second one, please. And yet, in 2016, the line that you see all the way, it's hard to see, it's a magenta line that is far to the left. Yes, thank you. This line here is known as the C1, C2 route. One of the factors that John Cullen and I both experience is that our homes are directly under the C1, C2 route. It has been since its inception. One of the things that I don't need the answer to this right now, but because there are several people I see here who live under the C1, C2 route, would like an answer to the question, how did we get from the federal verbiage of the North Shore route going around Orient Point to having the C1, C2 route set up where it is. The original transits, as I remember from my parents living in Mattatuck, was over Mattatuck Inlet as the VFR. And then it was with the initiation of the North Shore route, it was moved off of Mattatuck. If you look at the red zone on here, the red zone on here excludes Mattatuck, it excludes Shelter Island. One of those little boxes on that map says that says to transit, proceed to destination over unpopulated areas where possible. Yet the transit comes on the C1 for us, on the C1, C2, over my neighborhood and certain people that are here, that we have 40 homes in that surrounding area, and we get as many as 20 in 90 minutes, all right? And when I say over my house, I mean literally. You hear them coming in the distance, you get the vibrations off the houses, you can't tell exactly where they're coming, but eventually they come directly over, you see the nose, you see the underside of the fuselage, and then you see where it goes, you have to turn around. We watch them, they bank. If we're at Iron Pier on the beach, we see them bank over in the very near vicinity of the Northville platform. Okay, so that's a good VFR, I guess, reference point. And then they come and they hit a spot on the bay side, which appears to be just to the east of the Bay Beach by Laurel Lane, and then they take off down on the south side of Robbins Island. This is the transition zone that takes it over our neighborhood, other neighborhoods, several other housing enclaves, if you will, that are in Laurel, and yet it says to transition when possible over unpopulated areas. It's very possible to hit unpopulated areas if you fly around Orient Point, okay? And yet this is the result, okay? And this has been going on for years. I know you said that you abandoned the C1, C2 initiative, okay? But we're still getting numbers, as I've sent to you, consistent with what we had prior to the termination of that initiative. It still happens. We still have the numbers, and we also are experiencing, and I'm hoping some of my neighbors can attest to this also, we're also having what appears to be a longer duration of this. In other words, my times initially, as I reported to FAA, were 50 to 70 seconds. Now it seems as though you hear them further out. You hear them almost 70 seconds before they get to the house. And I don't know why this is, but we've all kind of noticed it. We also are noticing that you're getting, how do I put this? You're seeing them over the house, you're getting them over the neighborhoods, but they're not exactly on the line. But the dispersion, if you will, is not significant enough to keep them from being over the house or having the noise over the house. In addition, the deviation, if you will, let's say they're coming in over Calverton and they're going along what we're seeing now, we're seeing several along 25, halfway between. We're still getting that, okay? So even though it may not be directly C1, C2, those of us that live Manor Lane, Herrick's Lane, Laurel Lane in that area are still getting this exposure. So we're seeing no appreciable improvement from in May, and I don't know what date it was in May when you gave up on the C1, C2, but we're not seeing anything any kind of improvement on that. Can I get the next slide, please?
Can I just get some clarity? The transition points are created by your council? So you have the ability to affect change in the transition?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. This is, now I am not a computer person. The prior graphics were borrowed from people in the council. This is off of a NOAA paper nav chart. I was captain for several years, so I have these things. What I have is, you can see where my finger is pointing on the left there, right there. Where my finger is pointing is actually the Northville platform. The yellow or greenish line depicts what the North Shore route or rule route, whichever the FAA wants to put it as, around Orient Point to East Hampton. And the magenta line is the C1, C2 transition, again, right off the south tip of Robbins Island, over those unfortunate people in Noyak and to the East Hampton Airport. The difference between the green line and the magenta line is 18 miles. Now, when I put my data into the feds for the that wonderful workshop that they had, my numbers were based on 2012 numbers, meaning that it was approximately 110, 120 miles an hour. But if you use the 40-minute times that are advertised by the carriers today, this breaks down to 165 miles an hour. That's a 7-minute difference to cover that 18 miles, okay? What we are all experiencing in this room, in that corridor, in Laurel, you can see the way that magenta line runs. You can see Manor Lane, Herrick's Lane, and Laurel Lane there. What we are experiencing is for the sake of 7 minutes of flight time on a 40-minute run. And this is something that makes no sense to us. How do you justify having a transition line like this for 7 minutes, taking it over all those populated areas, and yet it's clear sailing over water? And this is something. We've never been able to get a clear answer on this. And this is something that we want. We're told, okay, it's not about the money, okay? But if it's not about the money, then what is it? You say that the weather on the South Shore is bad. Look, if I had $1 for every time I fished Orient, I don't know how much money I'd have, okay? But if you fly around and it's not the same weather conditions that you have on the South Shore, why can't that extra 7 minutes and whatever the extra fuel is, it's split 6 to 8 ways depending on what kind of aircraft they're using today. I mean, all of the FAA data was from 2012. This is 7 years later. There was a New York Times article recently that was touting flights out to the Hamptons, okay, 40 minutes. You don't have to, you've got better accommodations, better aircraft, more efficiency there, obviously, faster, okay? And for that, the cost is what it is. Your business is looking good. Look at all the extra flights that you have, okay? That extra cost isn't going to be borne by that level of consumer. I don't see that happening. I don't see where this is going to be the economic hardship that was touted by the operators in 2012. I don't see that as being the unbearable burden that was touted in the Michael Dobie article in 2014. Okay, and I'll stop with that, because why has the Eastern Region Helicopter Council not had an initiative to fly around Orient Point? That's something that we would like to hear, all right? You've had other initiatives. Why isn't that initiative? If it's not the money, then what is it? The thought process that Congressman Zeldin, as far as I'm concerned, erroneously expressed that you would lose 2 flights a day. I did the math over a 14-hour span, and if you do the math over a 14-hour span, and just real quick, 40 minutes each way plus 7 for that, plus 3 minutes per turnaround, you're losing 1.5 flights a day. And that can't be amortized out over the cost of the days, and that's under ideal conditions. And that can't be borne forward, that can't be made to work out on an industry like this. So these are things that the people here are ask in their own way. But these are the things that we look at, and it makes no sense to us. Okay? And these are the answers that we would like today. Thank you.
All right, so I don't want to spend too much time on the history lesson, but in 2008, we joined in on the voluntary agreement for the North Shore route. In 2012, it became an actual rule. Prior to it actually becoming a rule, the Eastern Region Helicopter Council came up with, because we're using it voluntarily already, we came up with the transition routes that you all have seen, and we've changed them. Because what we had seen is that all the traffic was going in and out over Mattatuck Inlet. I know that for a fact because I have my pen pal who would let me know 20, 30 times it was going over a house. I knew it. So we came up with the transition
Round trip.
routes. We came,
Round
right,
trip.
I agree, and that was in 2012. So what happened was, when the rule became, when it became mandatory, the ERC did not feel that it was on legal ground to be attaching a voluntary recommendation to a mandatory FAA rule. So for 2 or 3 years, I think we didn't do it. I don't think we had any transition, and it was all over in and out Mattatuck Inlet. 4 or 5 years ago, we made the conscious decision, we're gonna go back out. And the reason we wanted to do it was because we had inbound and outbound, and we wanted to split it up, because whether you all know it, it's noise is, even though it's a noise complaint, the biggest part of the complaint is volume. I can show you all of our noise complaints and the word volume of aircraft. You just gave me the whole rundown of a Monday morning. And it's volume, it's 732, it's 739, 742. So what we did was we went back to the transition routes and we split them all up. We had coming in, they were coming in over the Charlie 1, Charlie 2 transition. The light single engines were going, which cannot fly 165 miles an hour. We're going out the old Echo route is what we called it, and they were going between Shelter Island and the North Fork, and then out to the North Shore. And then we had our multi-engine 6,000 pound heavier aircraft were leaving on the Echo route, and they were going east of Shelter Island and out over the Causeway, which is not exactly Plum Gut, but it's the Causeway, and out. And by the time those aircraft got to that point, they were at 4,000 feet.
No, they weren't.
Okay, so we did that transition, and we did it. And what we did was we took Mattatuck completely out of it. So that red square, I think, John, you were showing, but we took Mattatuck completely out of it. And you know what? None of our noise complaints were fixed. Not one bit. Not one thing did we get. All we got was we spread them out, and I got calls by many of you here saying, why is everybody coming in and out over the North Shore? So this year, we abandoned all the transition routes because if a transition is, and it's something we're trying to do to alleviate some of the issues over the North Fork and they're not working, then we shouldn't be doing them. So what we did was we got rid of the transition routes and we made a conscious effort to have 50% in, and this is to go back to what John was saying, 100% of the inbounds were gonna come over the North Fork, and 100% of the departures were gonna go over the South Shore to the Atlantic Ocean. So effectively, it was a 50-50 split. This is a voluntary agreement. Did we have exactly 50-50? No. We had people come in the South Shore. We had people leave the South Shore. We had people come in the North Shore and leave. But I can show you, I have all the graphs from every weekend, and it shows a definitive fan of people coming in the north and people leaving the south. So that is how we got to where we are. So using, the other thing that we found out about using the going around Orient Point is it becomes 2 noise issues, not just 1, 2, because you're hearing them go and you're hearing them come back. All it is 100, it's almost it's a 340-degree turn just to come back. So you're getting 2 noise events at that time. So this year, and again, we're going through it right now. We're still haven't figured out what we're gonna do next year. It usually takes the whole season, is we're going through all the data and we're gonna see, are the noise complaints better? Are we making a change? Because that is our goal. Because I want everybody to remember, we're a voluntary agency, we're a voluntary organization. we're here, I'm not getting paid to be here, I'm missing my kids' gymnastics meet because I'm here, is because I care and the people I work with do care. Even though you may not believe so, we do. And that's why we're here. So this year, we're gonna go right back through it, we're gonna look at it all again, and we're gonna try to figure out what another solution is. That's my answer for you.
And will there be consideration then for an initiative to fly around Orient Point in its totality and take that data to compare it to how it is currently by these transition routes over populated areas?
There's nothing that's not on the table. We look at this stuff every single year. We do due diligence, and we spend a lot of time trying to figure out a solution.
What is your relation with the FAA and the North Shore route, either termination or whatever is supposed to happen on August the 6th, 2020?
My relationship with the FAA, the Eastern Region's relationship with the FAA,
Yes.
is very good. And whether we want the North Shore route to go away or stay, we've all adapted. If you look at it in the last 7 years that we've been doing it, we've adapted to the North Shore route. We have documentation that says you don't have to go up the North Shore. We can go down the center of the island, we can go to the South Shore. But if we're on the North Shore, we are going to follow the North Shore route.
Oh.
And the altitudes, just so everybody knows, those altitudes, and it was a very important point, is it says minimum 2,500 feet. People that are coming out to East Hampton, weather permitting, are at 3,500 feet. They don't go off the North Shore, they don't do, okay? I can show you the data that it is. I can show you the data that it is. Okay.
Can you share that data with us?
And most
Again,
people
the comparison of that versus what you hear from these people is something that I think is warranted. And as far as the, my question regarding the FAA and its August 6th deadline kind of spins off of a 2014 comment that you made to the East Hampton Press, which said that ERHC was very happy that the North Shore route was not enforced to go around Orient Point. And I have that on my phone if you want to see it
All
later.
right. Well,
But
there was never a rule change on the North Shore route to make us fly around Orient Point. And as far as our initial reaction to the North Shore was we were very much opposed, while very much people in this room were for it. But the Eastern Region Helicopter Council was opposed to it. In fact, the helicopter industry took it to court and we lost. So what we did was we lost in court, is we started flying the North Shore route. That's what happened.
Can you address volume? You say the complaints that you get are noise and volume.
Mhm.
So in that respect, you know, it's what do you consider an appropriate volume over a particular area? It's the number of flights over the area, the distance between the helicopters going from when they cross over land. How do you monitor that?
We don't monitor the volume going over. My point is I get well, East Hampton doesn't give me their noise complaints, but the noise complaints I get, because a lot of people in this room have my phone number and my email, is it's volume. And if somebody can tell me that's not true, is that right? Teresa, is that not? John, is that not? Is volume?
Volume's
It's volume.
tremendous.
It's volume.
why
So-
everybody's here.
So
That's
I
one
get that
portion of the
information
problem.
from the people that I talk to that are affected.
So, but my question is, how do you address the issue of volume?
So this year, what we did, why it became a volume issue is because we had a problem where our operators were going in and out over the same point, and that area was getting all of the volume. So we tried to separate it, and when we separated it, the only way we could do that is by waypoints. And when you set those waypoints up going out 30 and 40 miles, then you have everybody coming in over the same checkpoint. GPS is down to 0.3 meters on a checkpoint. Helicopters are very precise. They can fly the exact same spot. So everybody coming in was going over the same area. People going out was going over the same area. So what we did today, and actually textbook noise abatement, is one, altitude, and the second one is dispersion. So what we did is tell our members we're getting rid of the transition route, and we want them all to disperse their flight paths in so there wasn't so much volume over the same neighborhoods. Now, there's something that has to be, each airport, not just East Hampton, have noise abatement routes inside of their airspace. They have those, because once you get closer to an airport, you have to have control of where every helicopter, airplane, jet's gonna land. So, there is an endpoint to that, and the first checkpoint into East Hampton on the North Shore is the southern point of Robbins Island. So everybody at some point diverges on the south point of Robbins Island.
Right.
And that's the first checkpoint going into East Hampton.
And so if you fly the North Shore route, you're still gonna get all this over the North Fork. And as the second to the last bullet point I have here, we're still gonna be having to shut our windows, put our air conditioners on, because the noise is still gonna be there. Is this what you're saying? I mean, in essence, is this what it is? As the business grows and the numbers increase and the dispersion goes, but yet you're still gonna have X amount going in the neighborhood of C1, C2 to get to that Robbins Island waypoint, if it's not going around Orient Point, we're still gonna have it over our dinner tables and over our decks. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, that's what they tell us.
I do not control the noise abatement routes in East Hampton Airport.
I'm done. Thank you. Did I really?
Get it later.
Good evening. Teresa McCaskey with the South Hill Town Helicopter Advisory Committee. And have some information to share with you this evening. Thank you for the opportunity for letting me participate with the Riverhead Task Force. John's a pleasure to work with. Thank you, John. As the concerned citizens living in New York become irritated by the pulsating sounds and the sheer volume of helicopter overflights, safety has also become a prominent concern. Over the past 2 years, there have been 3 memorable helicopter crashes in New York City alone. In March of 2018, a sightseeing helicopter went down in the East River, killing all 5 tourists. In May of 2019, a helicopter crashed in the Hudson River shortly after takeoff. Luckily, only the pilot and the dock worker were injured. It was only the pilot and the dock worker. In June of 2019, a pilot that was only certified to fly under visual flight rules took to flight in relatively bad weather, crashed into a skyscraper, which resulted in his death. With many years of experience of flying, he was only VFR certified. These are all part of reality when taking to the skies as form of transportation. None of these instances were the result of a fiery crash that resulted in 5 British passengers dying while doing an aerial Grand Canyon sightseeing tour in 2018. It has been publicly noted that these passengers could have survived the crash should the helicopter have been equipped with a crash-resistant fuel system, also known as CFRS. This has been a long-standing industry issue. I will quote from a recent article that states, quote, "The Federal Aviation Administration in 1994 began requiring all helicopters to be equipped with crash-resistant fuel tanks, but a loophole in the requirement allowed aircraft designed prior to 1994 to continue to be manufactured without them. Even newer helicopters, many of which employ newer technologies, are based on older designs and are not subject to the rule," unquote. A series of high-profile crashes of medical helicopters in 2015 prompted the NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, to urge aircraft manufacturers to begin retrofitting their crafts with crash-resistant fuel systems. According to the 2015 NTSB report, only 15% of helicopters in service had crash-resistant fuel tanks. The report also noted 178 helicopter crashes since 1994 had post-crash fires, and 72 deaths occurred because of the fires, unquote. On a positive note, the sightseeing tour company Papillion Tours has taken the proactive steps to have all the helicopters retrofitted with crash-resistant fuel tanks, and that was done voluntarily. In October of 2018, the FAA reauthorization bill was passed. In that bill, it requires all newly manufactured helicopters, including those types certified before 1994, to have crash-resistant fuel systems. Also included in the law, quote, manufacturers have until April of next year to comply with the inclusion of the systems on all newly built helicopters, unquote. As for many of the helicopters that are currently operating that fall outside of this rule, the authorization bill does not mandate that they be retrofitted for safety. At this time, please refer to the 2018 charts, Kerry, that list the helicopter models that are compliant with full crash-resistant fuel tanks and models with partial crash-resistant fuel tanks. Thank you, Kerry. So this is information I received off of the FAA website. If you can see some of the helicopter names that are on there, what I do not see is that's the Bell helicopters, which are often flown to East Hampton and other areas of the South Fork, okay? And there's a full list of the ones that are compliant. Now, if you can help me, please, to go to the charts, to the chart that has the list that fly to the South Fork. That one, yep. Now, based on the information I was able to collect this summer, along with other members of my committee, these are the helicopter models that currently fly either to the Southampton Village helipad or East Hampton or Montauk. The Bells, again, many of them are partially equipped with the crash-resistant fuel tanks, but there's a full list of Sikorskys that are listed, and those are our primary aircraft that we are all experiencing, okay? Now, based on the charts provided, there's no information regarding the Sikorsky helicopters. So I would like to, let's see, and I cannot find any supporting evidence that shows that the Sikorskys are even partially compliant. Instead, what I was able to find is the quote that Sikorsky, in another article, as they were being interviewed for this information, Sikorsky would rather that there be no quote-unquote requirement of crash-resistant fuel tanks to be retrofitted in Part 29 transport category aircraft. They would just rather it just be almost as if it's an option. So again, the full list of Sikorskys that are on there are maybe just a portion of what I could get my hands on, and all of those fly over our homes. And I think everyone in here can attest to that. That's what they're experiencing as the majority of the problem. So in other words, we are all being put in danger because if in fact many of these aircraft do not have crash-resistant fuel tanks, for every overflight, everyone under the flight path, everyone that's on the beachfront that happens to be enjoying their beach could be put in jeopardy. And also we're referring to where John Cullen is by the tanks. So there is no reason in my mind to understand why we are being flown over in such volume, in repeated flight paths, below 3,500 feet, 3,000, even less. You know I've spoken with regards to that. And as for the exit route, based on the 2019 exit routes out of East Hampton, there's an E4 line. Yes, that line points towards as if it's going to exit towards Orient. I have yet to see one helicopter pilot choose that route, and there's a reason for it. It's to shorten the route, to save time, to save fuel, to get to the destination as quickly as possible. If you have one pilot showing me that they've made that E4 route out of East Hampton, which conveniently was done this year, I have yet to see any pilot do that. We get transitions over Mattatuck to Montauk. We're getting them out to Nantucket, okay? We're getting them to East Hampton. They're flying over the North Fork to get to Gabreski, and even to Southampton Village. I'd like an explanation as to why, when there's an oceanfront helipad, why pilots are coming through the North Shore route to go to the Southampton Village, to then turn around, which we have examples of that with us tonight, to go back through the North Fork, when the South Shore route is perfectly safe, it's possible, it's available to do. It's been done, and we have the graphs up there to prove that it's been done. So it needs to be utilized much more often. And on top of that, there needs to be a mandatory South Shore route. A mandatory South Shore route, as it was supposed to have been done. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Can I just, so your Echo 4 route, all of the routes, the noise abatement routes at East Hampton still exist? It's, the reason we're going November and Sierra is so that we can get the 50-50 split. If you want them to go out the Echo route, that's going right back over to the North Shore. That's exactly what we were trying to alleviate.
We certainly don't want it, but I'm saying
Well, I'm
that
just,
that
I'm
route was
answering your question why we
available.
didn't do it.
Oh.
Because we pushed very hard to make sure we were doing a 50-50 split of people coming in the north and leaving the south.
Well, we also
So
have
that's
an-
why you didn't see anybody on the Echo route, because that is the only outbound route on the north side to get to the North Shore.
No, I disagree with that, no.
Okay, what is it?
No, the other route happens to have disappeared. As soon as they get up towards, just past Sag Harbor, and the pilots do the old route, which was up on the map earlier, the Kerry.
Okay, no, I know what you're talking about. The old route, that you're discussing.
And they go right back up Peconic.
The old route that you're discussing is outside this 4.8 miles that East Hampton Town owns, the airport owns, that 4.8 miles, that's their control zone. They have the routes that they have inside the 4.8. The route that disappeared was the old transition route that we came up with to
Right.
go up over the causeway.
But it's still utilized.
You
It's
just-
still being
I-
utilized.
I thought you just said that nobody used it.
I know,
we
I said
shouldn't
that,
have
no,
had
the
any
new
new-
E4, there's an E4 on the map,
I'll look.
2019, if you wanna pull it up. On the 2019, there's an E4 that shoots to the east of, Orient Point, okay? And unfortunately, I don't have that information with me today to be actually even present it to you,
I'm gonna look and I'm
but-
gonna get back to you, because
I could swear that that's an E4, but what is happening again is that the pilots are either going over the Orient Causeway, and unfortunately Adam Irving is not here to confirm that, but I'm sure he can send you an email, or else they come back right up Peconic Lane, literally go up Peconic Lane. And then, on top of that, we have the seaplanes beelining from Connecticut right through Southold, straight into East Hampton Airport. So the volume has got to stop. This cannot continue to happen to people that are working hard, that are citizens, that are taxpayers here. So if you want, it's enough is enough already. 11 years of fighting this battle, you know I've been at the table many times. I have provided plenty of information to support this abuse that we have all been we have been subjected to, and the transition routes are no longer acceptable at all whatsoever.
So we're gonna move on. Can you hear me? I'm not used to
Yeah.
being at this mic. I'm going to wrap up from the group. As you can see, this group has a wealth of knowledge, and they've worked very hard, but I know a lot of people are here and they have their questions, and I want to get to all of them. So I'm just gonna make a final statement on behalf of the group, and Sid is gonna start with some questions, and then we're gonna open up to the questions that are on the cards. So let me begin by thanking Jeff. Thank you for coming, and thank you to everyone has come this evening, actually. It's very nice to see other elected officials here, and I'm appreciative of the news outlets that are here as well. Any time that we can get the word out there about this problem, it's good for us. The North Fork of Long Island is a beautiful place to live. We have pristine beaches and farm fields that stretch for miles. Our neighborhood should be quiet. Unfortunately, as you have heard from others tonight, that is not the case. On Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday throughout the months of May, June, July, August, September, and October. This is when helicopters are busy shuttling people to the Hamptons via the North Shore route. If you are a resident living in these areas of Riverhead and Southold getting bombarded with helicopters, it's a challenge to even have a conversation outside in the height of the season. This past summer, helicopters flew over my home every few minutes. One day in August, I saw a small plane fly up off the water straight towards my house, and at the last second, it lifted enough to pass over the roof. A few weeks ago, as I stood at the kitchen sink, I heard a helicopter approaching. I watched it fly along at the bluff at eye level with me. And I don't live in the hardest hit areas. On the Eastern Regional Helicopter website, it says, since its inception, Eastern Regional Helicopter Council has always had an active community outreach program to address the concerns of residents relating to helicopter and heliport issues. At the bottom of the page, it reads, "Our first priority has always been and remains safety." Well, our residents have been calling, writing, and logging in millions of complaints for over 10 years. Enough already. The situation has become grave. At this juncture, we have logged in enough complaints. We cannot have thousands of flights over our homes. The North Shore route must be changed to an all-water route along the South Shore to stop the helicopter traffic over our homes. I understand what you're saying about the South Shore route, but my feeling is if the North Shore route was not available, it would be figured out some way that they could come along the South Shore route. We need answers, we need change, and we need action.
Greetings, Mr. Smith. Thank you for coming to Riverhead. My name's Sid Bale. I'm president of the Wading River Civic Association. I'd like to pose 3 quick questions to you, maybe brief questions. You could give me some brief answers, and I'm going to try to keep it in that 3-minute time slot. Well, I hope everyone else who speaks keeps it that way. First question, Mr. Smith. The EHRC, does the EHRC regard helicopter noise as a genuine problem affecting significant portions of the population rather than just a vocal minority?
We take the flight neighborly and the noise abatement very seriously. That's why we're here, and we understand that there are noise issues, absolutely.
Second question, does the EHRC agree that shifting helicopter traffic from one place to another simply assaults the quality of life elsewhere?
If you move, yes, if you have designated routes and you move from one to the other, then you're going to shift the noise to the different area.
And my last question, you talked about the idea of an all-water route. On the North Shore, do you have any idea of the percentage of flights that actually use the all-water route on the North Shore? Is it higher than 0? Okay. What about the South Shore? The Atlantic?
They're both higher than 0.
How much, roughly? I'm looking at.
We strove this summer for 50-50.
In all water routes?
All water was the
All
question.
water.
They came to North Shore, I mean, coming across the South Hill,
No transitioning.
No transition.
they both have transitions.
They
No-
what?
No transitioning over land. How about in Riverhead?
The Riverhead, the North Fork has all the inbounds. It was all the 50, yeah.
Thank you.
Scott, did you want to come up and say something? Al Krupski, County Legislator.
Thank you to Riverhead Town Supervisor and Riverhead Town Board for having this. Thank you, Jeff Smith, for coming out. The Riverhead Helicopter Task Force, Teresa, thank you for all the hard work you put into this. This is like Groundhog Day, though. It's everyone kind of feels the same way, and it's the same complaints. Because we don't get any benefit from the helicopter traffic, we just get dumped on by the noise. And it's and to echo what Teresa said, there's no need for it. There's absolutely no need for us to bear the burden of this kind of traffic, period.
Supervisor
First of all, yeah, I do want to thank you for hosting this forum, and Jeff, I want to thank you. I've dealt with you quite a bit over the years. Just a little bit of a history lesson. This issue was created as a result of the creation of the North Shore route. The North Shore route was established quite simply through the political pressure of Senator Schumer. The gentleman that spoke earlier, you seem like a nice guy. I've met you in the past, but the words of your boss ring hollow. He's pushing, he's demanding that you honor a all-water route, and basically suggesting he has no authority to impose that because he has no authority over the FAA. However, he had the ability to put political pressure on the FAA to create that North Shore route to begin with. With respect to the all-water route, either we have two options, and I know the South Shore route is a very important issue, but the numbers you read before, it takes the numbers from completely unbearable to unbearable with the use of the South Shore route. Either get rid of the North Shore route altogether and go back to flying the wires route, letting yourselves scatter across the spine of Long Island. Yes, at the expense of the votes and the pockets of the people of Garden City and Manhasset, but that's why Senator Schumer created that route, to push the noise away from the heavily populated areas. That's exactly right. He sacrificed the East End on behalf of his residents to the west. And we all know that's true. We all know it was a result of political pressure by Senator Schumer. We had a meeting at the airport with representatives from the FAA and others who did concede at the meeting. How did this, incidentally, so people know, the FAA is very reluctant to create mandatory routes for, if I'm not mistaken, for helicopters, if I'm not mistaken. Generally, they regulate fixed wing. And we asked them, how did this North Shore route come about? How did it become a mandated route? And they did concede at the meeting it was political pressure. A gentleman from the FAA from Baltimore came and told us that. I have a feeling he's working at Wendy's now because he was honest. However, the reality is, if you do either do away with the route altogether and go back to scattering along the spine of Long Island, or make it an all-water route. You did mention, just a point of clarity, you had mentioned the issue of the all-water route around Orient Point, and if you go out farther enough, actually it's around Plum Island, and that creates two noise issues. I'm trying to remember what the two you said were.
Right, it's almost a 340-degree turn to go out over the point and come out. So
Yes.
the people that are on that tip of the North Fork are going to hear that traffic twice.
Unless you extend out further and then come back and over Gardner's back. If you go out far enough, you'll exceed the point. You'll come around Plum Island. I checked with the animals. They're cool with the noise. But the all-water route would mean all-water extending well beyond Orient Point, extending beyond Plum Island, coming back over Gardner's Bay. That's the all-water route. Either adhere to that or simply have the senator apply the pressure he once did to either make it mandatory or get rid of the damn route to begin with.
Jeff, before you respond, I'd like to, whenever you're finished, I'd like to respond and just clarify the senator's position.
Sure.
You know, he's
You
always
should come to the
publicly-
mic,
Yep.
Kara,
Yeah.
you should come to the mic. Thank you, Scott. I mean Supervisor.
Just to be clear, Senator Schumer has always supported an all-water route for the North Shore that extends around Orient and Plum Island. It wasn't behind-the-scenes political pressure. He was always public about that. The RHC, Eastern Regional Helicopter Council, did so voluntarily, and then the FAA made it mandatory. He also supports an all-water route around along the South Shore of Long Island, which also avoids traffic over the Barrier Islands. So that has always been his position. What political pressure has inferred, I can't speak to. By the supervisors, I can't speak to, but he's always been very public about what he has supported and pushed for. And when the Eastern Regional Helicopter Council agreed to voluntarily do that, if you want to infer that was political pressure from the senator, you can do so. And then the FAA chose to create a route based off of consultations with the Eastern Regional Helicopter and whoever else may have weighed in.
I appreciate this, and I know this is not decorum, but if your boss is serious about an all-water route, have him come out to the East End with his inflatable podium and tell us he's gonna fight for us.
He helped secure the language that Lee Zeldin wrote and drafted and secured, and he has to push the FAA to continue implementing that to evaluate the route. When those hearings experience did not happen as intended. He went to the FAA anonymous and told them that he intended to see them happen. So we still continue to fight that fight. We will always fight for you.
We can move to question, Patrick. Mark Willie, if you wanted to speak, you represented for Congressman Zeldin.
I sure do. I'm Mark Woolley. I'm the director for Congressman Zeldin. Thank you for all coming out.
Where is he?
Working. Okay. No, the congressman doesn't take helicopters. We're right here. If you want to talk about what's going on here, we've been doing this for quite a while with everybody here. I know, I live in Mattatuck. I know what it's like to have the helicopters come in and basically ask me for a cup of coffee on the way in and out. You don't have to understand any more than what you're seeing here, Jeff. We've talked about this in the past, and we're going to continue to talk about it. What I'm hoping is that this meeting is the first of many that's going to happen to get us to where we need to get finally. Transitioning, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Transitioning should take place over Georgia Capon on the South Shore route going into East Hampton. None of the pilots can explain why they're transitioning over Miller Place. Calverton, Northville, Wading River, South Jamesport, Aquabog, Cutchogue, Mattatuck, New Suffolk, etc. We know it. We know what it is. So the bottom line is we're going to continue to work with you. We want the pilots to understand that we're serious about this. We don't want an accident. This is about safety. I know about the woman who contacted our office up in Bridgehampton because of the near miss there. We don't want that to happen. We don't want near misses. We don't want any of that. We don't want anybody getting hurt either in the sky or on the ground. We want the pilots to take their clients in and out like they want to, as they should be doing, but they should be following the South Shore. We want them to come on the South Shore. There's every reason that they should be there because where they're going is on the South Shore. The North Fork has taken a lot over the years, and we get that you can only take so much. And I think these folks here are just by the fact that they're here, are showing you that it's time to stop throwing it on the backs of the North Fork and making it look like it's a scene out of Apocalypse Now coming out of the water. So I'm not going to get into the politics here as far as the senator or any of that. We're going to continue to work with our colleagues in the Senate. We're going to continue to work with our colleagues at the state and the town and the county levels to ensure that there is safety, that the pilots, we understand that it's on your backs to go ahead and work with us, and we want you to work with us. And all we can do is ask you to hear what they're having to say here and go back to them and have them work a lot better than they have in the past so that we don't have this continue. We don't want, like I said, we don't want to have an accident occur and then have to act at that point. And then it becomes a tragedy. And we see that. We're not looking to have that happen here. So I'm hoping, like I said, that this is the first of many meetings that are going to happen to get where we need to get. And that's to resolve this issue and finally get it so that the pilots are getting out to where they need to be, but not over the North Shore, the North Fork anymore. Take the all-Atlantic route that we've been proposing, and meantime, our office will continue to work with the FAA as best we can to get them to hear us. And we know that that's a chore, but we're up to the task. We'll continue to work that angle as well. But in the meantime, you can work with us. And you talk about flying neighborly. Here's your neighbors. They're asking you to do that. And on behalf of the Congressman, we're asking you to do that as well. So thank you very much.
So now we'll invite those that have filled out cards to come up and speak. We'll go through names and.
William Von Helmond, Jim Underwood, and I'm sorry if I butcher anyone's name in advance. Kathleen Radigan.
And once again, we ask you to stick to the 3 minutes, please.
That's my introduction. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for having this forum. My name is William Charles Van, can you hear me?
Yep.
My name is William Charles Van Helmond. I'm the current president of the Greater Jamesport Civic Association, and basically everybody in my group is in your Charlie 1, Charlie 2 route, and is affected by the noise, the safety, the inconsistencies, and the volume that is created. I really don't have any questions because the task force has done a fantastic job. They've been doing that for a long time, and I applaud you for doing so. But I just like to really need to make a strong statement, and please don't take it personal. We need to reform your routes. If we here on the North Fork wanted helicopter and the seaplane noise, we would have built our own airport. We have no airport on the North Fork for a reason. No airport equals no noise. This is clearly, by your council, infringing on our civil liberties. And you take away our quality of life. We don't want the traffic and the noise. And we sure don't want to put up with the suppression of our civil liberties anymore with the quality of life. It needs to stop now. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jim Underwood. I live at 505 Laurelwood Drive, Laurel. Since July 19th this summer, I have filed 666 noise complaints at plainnoise.com. I live under a bullseye. I am that green line that cuts across the island is nothing short of obscene. It just disgusts me because I'm right towards the end of it as it gets to the bay. For 17 years, I lived in a quiet country home, and in the last 3 years, it has become helicopter hell. My 666 noise complaints are sort of obsessive and crazy, and yes, this has made me crazy, as it has many of the other people in the room here. I've had discussions with my wife about moving. This is just insanity. Now, if there are other sources of noise in our communities, if it were noise from a leaf blower or a garbage truck, at least someone in the neighborhood would be benefiting. These things cut across the North Fork, and our towns do not benefit at all, and the tourism and the partying and all that goes on Blade and all of these other transportation is benefiting the South Shore. The people in this room are victims of an industry that's run amok. There are no controls. These apps, these other services are just out of control. Just to contradict a couple of your comments about noise and altitude, for about 15 here, just starting July 19th at 6:05. All right, in any case, these are all on July 19th. The altitudes are not 2,500 feet. I've got 1371, 992, 1092, 741, 655, one at 6,080. Yippee. 905, 1230, and 905. I just don't think that you're really telling us the truth. Most of these people, I'll guarantee you, spend a lot of time on a computer. And for you to tell us that there's a 50-50 split in terms of entering and returning, that's just nonsense. That Atlantic route gets used by my observations 20% of the time. It's ruined our quality of life for a lot of people under this path.
Again, I think I've got a bullseye on my house because I've written a couple of letters to Newsday. I've been on News 12 as one of the people describing the 495 in the sky. Something has to change. We need an all-water route, or if not, close the airport.
Mr. Smith, can you just address the heights that this gentleman was just bringing up? I mean, I live in the same path, and I can tell you that they are not flying at 2,500 feet. So why is that?
It was all one day, July 19th. I'm going to go back and see what the weather is. The only thing that affects the altitudes of those going in is weather, and that's it.
No.
Don't fly.
Are any flights ever restricted if they know coming out they're not going to be able to maintain that altitude, that they don't take off?
No.
Make that a rule.
Okay, sorry.
I'm sorry. Good evening. My name is Kathleen Radigan. My husband and I live just off of Sound Avenue in Riverhead in the Willow Ponds development. And we are blessed to live right on the water. We're also cursed to live right on the water. One of the problems that we are having is the frequency of the seaplanes and the helicopters which fly over our neighborhood, over the Sound, over Sound Avenue, and over County Road 58, and all points in between. It's absolutely excessive and out of hand. July was awful, August was awful, and September is even worse. Yesterday alone, between 8:30 a.m. and 9:14 a.m., 10 aircraft flew over and around the neighborhood. I'm not going to keep beating the dead horse. Everyone here, I think, has hit a level of frustration that is not to be believed. I lived in Queens for 15 years in the flight path of LaGuardia Airport. It is nothing compared to what is going on out here. Misses, one of them over my neighbor's home, between helicopters that are flying too close together, and the seaplanes are doing it as well. Thank you very, very much.
Dan Zaweski, Kerry Igorak. Okay. Leanne Pearson and Tracy Leary.
Good evening. Thank you for putting this together. There were some great comments beforehand, so I'm not going to reiterate any of them. My name is Dan Zaweski. I am the 5th generation who grew up in the same area in Jamesport. We own a farm that covers about a half a mile that's directly underneath that green line with homes on either ends and barns on it. And no matter where you go, we're affected by this, at least on that parcel of land. I think there's just two questions I have before I close with the statement. The first is, I still don't understand, what is the problem with an all-water North Shore route? I heard a bunch of answers, but what's the real issue with it?
North Shore is how?
Excuse me?
You mean North Shore?
North Shore.
So we had for several years a route that left East Hampton and went out over the causeway. And we had a Fly Neighborly meeting. We didn't have it last year. We've had it every year for 10 years, 11 years. The Eastern Region Helicopter Council, we do a Fly Neighborly kickoff meeting in March. And several of the noise complaints, a big group of it was, all it did was move over to the North Fork. We believe, now, people believe me or not, that going up around and coming back causes a double event for noise. I look at all the noise complaints, even the air noise report. I don't think it's valid because the information is sacred. You can't see who's doing what, but there's noise complaints all over that area. So we believe that there is a two noise event to going through. And as far as going wider and coming back out, there's the 2-8 final for the jets that are coming out. The 2-8 final goes right out over what's the island now?
Plum Island?
No, it's not that far out. No, I'll think of it. Anyway, it shoots out right over that coming around. Fisher Island, yes.
Fisher's Island, okay.
But those jets are at 10,000 feet.
No,
They've
they're
got
not.
nothing, they're at 10,000, yes, they are.
They can't go from 10,000 to 0 in that amount of space, Teresa.
But they're up higher. You're talking about a flight path at 2,500 feet, 3,000 feet. Those jets are not at 3,000. I can tell you, I'm getting jets at my house at 2,400 feet to go to Gabreski, okay? So, no one's worrying about me though, or anyone in my community.
Your house is is the final instrument approach published procedure for the 2-4 final at Gabreski. That's why you have jets going over your house, because it is the published approach to 2-4.
Things need to change, but that's the point. Things need to change. People are here to tell you that
And
it
I'm
needs
here
to
to
change.
listen.
But
And I'm here to listen.
those jets are, even if they're at 5,000 feet, not one helicopter does 5,000 feet. Ask these people. They're not here to complain about a helicopter that's 5,000 feet, Jeff. They're here to file complaints because they're flying 2,500 below, they're scud running. September, 2nd or 3rd, which is the day of the storm where all of us got the warnings about a tornado. We had helicopters in every direction. Every single direction over the North Fork. At how many feet? I texted Garrett. I texted him. There was one about at 800 feet. They shouldn't have even been flying, Jeff. They should not have been flying. Okay? So we are having all different altitudes. Do not tell these people that a helicopter at 3,000 feet is going to be an issue when a jet is at 6,000 feet. They need how much space in between? 500? 1,000? Make it happen. It's as simple as that. We have a whole bay, we have a whole Atlantic Ocean, and if you sit there and watch the plane finder map and watch the Atlantic Ocean, there's not much going on right below the Dune Road. There's not that much going on. But yet, for some reason, the North Fork has to take flights from Boston over the North Fork. I literally listen to them in my bed at nighttime. I hear jets going into JFK, all right? To JFK, literally over my house at 12,000 feet, okay? So we are literally the runway to JFK, and they're gonna be probably into Islip, and we're dealing with seaplanes and helicopters. It has to change. If not, then it needs to be made clear that East Hampton Airport needs to close, and then Southampton Village needs to close. It's simple. That will help relieve some of our problems.
Yes, one more question.
Yeah, well, I had two, but I can kind of mold them into one. One, you mentioned abatement, and there is no other abatement means. One of the things that confuses me is we'll have two helicopters that pass over at the same height, usually less than 2,500 foot, but let's say for 2,500 foot. One will make my entire house rattle. One, I really don't notice. It's not much different than a jet going into Gabreski, which really doesn't present any problems for us. There's no other form of noise abatement that can be added or retrofitted to any of those helicopters.
No. So the certification process, we are now in stage 3 noise compliance. So everything being certified from 2014 has to make stage 3 requirements. So all of those aircraft that are being certified are going to be that much more quiet than a stage 2 helicopter.
And
So that's how the process works. There's not like kits we can make to make it more quiet.
So is in your determination, is there a possibility to say, depending upon the stage and the vintage of the helicopter, there's an appropriate route for it to follow?
We had, so going back to the route structure, we abandoned the route structure with transitions because we did listen, and there's nobody in this room said that it did work. And what we had was we had the heavier helicopters, the heavier ones, which would give you the difference, correct, right? If you have a little small one, it's not gonna make as much a signature as the large one. We had those going out east of Shelter Island, over the causeway, and out over the sound. We did do that. And the only way that we can say whether we're successful or not is if whether we hear it from you. We fly it, and we hear it's not successful. So we won't continue to do something that's causing agita because we're doing it to try to help. And that's really what it comes down to. So certification and making the rules and all that, we can't do that. We're just going the extra step to try to figure out some noise abatement, noise mitigation. because abatement means all gone. And I'm not here to promise anybody that we're gonna get rid of all the noise. It's mitigation.
But I think you have to go back to volume. You know, it's not each individual craft, as you said in the beginning, it's volume also. So I think one cannot be, even with the noise abatement, you must consider the volume.
Which is why we want our members to disperse. We don't want them over the same route.
Just yes or no. In the whole process, is there any determination on social justice in terms of determination of routes?
Not yet,
Really?
not yet.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Burgess Levy. I live at 865 White Eagle Drive in Laurel. During the 1980s, I was a traffic pilot, so I kind of know, you and I have corresponded by email, and you've been very snarky to me, but that's okay. I'm kind of used to that. But I thank you for coming here and listening, and I don't really think that you're going to do anything about this, quite frankly, because you've come here and lied. On the date that Terry was talking about, there was a pilot that buzzed my house at 250 feet. Trinka heard it. John heard it. We were all there. I'm taking pictures of this damn thing. Some woman who had to leave. I'm so sorry. Some woman who had to leave has video of it. It's outrageous to come here and say that the pilots are taking or stacking themselves under certain whatever. They're not. I flew with a bunch of pilots. They were cowboys. They were cowboys when they wanted to be, and they were cowboys, I'm sure, if they're getting their blade drinking whatever passengers. Oh, let's go house hunting. Let's look over the North Shore. Oh, look at the pretty farms. I'm sure they're doing all that, so don't stop me. I just wanted folks to know, Al-Anar Charter Services, which is one of the ones that's going into East Hampton Air, $3,105 for a single engine helicopter. That's what our social justice, we have none. It's the people who can spend $3,105 for a one-way ticket into East Hampton Airport. Hellalite, Textron, Sikorsky, Shoreline Aviation, CSC, Transport, HAP, Gotham Helicopters, Rencopter, Ira Rennert. He is the most disrespectful man to the people of the North Fork. He should really come here and apologize, and you should drag him here because I understand that you have a relationship. I'm going to give my time up to somebody else, but quite frankly, I find it insulting that the people of the North Fork have to be the doormat for the Hamptons.
John Rose, Linda Prizer, and Diane Tucci.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor and everyone else who has been here tonight. My name is Linda Prizer. I'm the president of the Northville Beach Civic Association. I'm right in that area that the helicopters have chosen to cross right over. Unfortunately, I think that we are now at a position of who do you believe, me or your eyes? I stood at a meeting at the beginning of the summer on Iron Pier Beach when the very same promises were being made to us by Senator Schumer's office, Senator Gillibrand's office, and Congressman Zeldin's office, that they were going to listen, they were going to take it back to Congress, and something was going to be done. And here we are. What has happened? Zip, zero, garnished. We are unfortunately the stepchild of the Princess South Fork. And I think that we have to all recognize that they are the ones with the power and the money, and we have to do something about it. We, luckily here today, are starting to organize, and this is what I think we have to do. I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, but to tell us that you have a 50-50 with the returning flights going back over the Atlantic Ocean is simply incorrect. I have looked over my house and I see the helicopters traveling in a northwest direction constantly. That is going back from the South Fork into JFK. That is not going out over the Atlantic Ocean. They come in over us, you sit in the backyard, you cannot hear yourself speak. It is getting worse by the year, for every year that we've been out here. We have friends who come out and say, what's going on? We had somebody who detailed the helicopter crashes. What about the light plane crash that we had here right into one of our farms when 2 people were killed? Unfortunately, this is something that can happen again, and we don't want it to happen again. An all-water route is the only way to go. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. I'm Diane Tucci, and I live in Riverhead. I'm here tonight to support all the people who have spent so much time and energy in addressing this long-time problem. This is a quality of life issue that nobody should live with, that the noise is so loud and disturbing that it can drown out your TV or even shake the pictures off of your wall. I'm concerned that so many of these helicopters use the United Riverhead Terminal fuel tanks as navigating points, flying repeatedly over these flammable fuel storage containers. It concerns me that some people get more than 100 helicopters a day flying overhead, one after another, so that those who want to get to the Hamptons don't have to sit in traffic. We need to demand that the helicopters take a route over the Atlantic Ocean and not over our homes for a shortcut. Riverhead is not their shortcut. Our peace of mind is not worth the 7 minutes it would take to fly alternative routes. We need to protect the quality of life for our residents, and I hope that you will support a plan that solves this once and for all. Thank you.
Barbara Giatuso, Tara D'Amato, and Gerard Maxim.
Good evening. My name is Gerard Maxim. I am somewhat of a guest here. I live at 44 Block Boulevard in Porter Station, which is in the town of Brookhaven. I thought I was the only nut in my family that was out there running outside with the cameras, taking pictures and jotting down when helicopters passed by, but now I see them amongst friends here. I started getting involved in this back in, I think it was 2007, 2008, the Thursday of Memorial Day weekend. I was sitting out in my backyard. And I had like about 25 to 30 helicopters pass overhead within a span of about 2 hours, and I was like, "What's going on?" And then that's when I kind of got, I realized what was going on. I'm a retired lieutenant colonel of the U.S. Army and a retired Suffolk County police officer, so I know the difference between a military helicopter, a police helicopter, and a commercial helicopter. And since about that time, I've been writing down, or when the helicopters pass overhead of my house. I didn't have my information here because it's on the computer. But as an example, 2008, I recorded 50. Now, my house is about 5 linear miles off of Port Jefferson, inland, so south of the shoreline. So my concern is you guys have a bigger problem than I do here, out here in your green route that crosses over the North Fork. But what kind of accountability do we have with the pilots that fly 5 miles inland? Now, I can provide all the information of my lists. I've sent them all off to the FAA recently. Probably on half of my entries on my logs that I've kept, I account for the weather, and half the time the weather is clear, like clear blue skies. Now that's on the North Shore, not even getting into the South Shore weather. But I think that there's pilots out there that are abusing it. I've jumped up like a crazy guy at 6:50 on a Sunday morning with some guys like strafing the neighborhood, and those are the guys that that really drive you crazy. That they don't care whose life they're affecting. They're just looking to get out there, and no pun intended, get out there under the radar, and hope that nobody catches them. And they're doing it flagrantly. I have a big problem with it. I've been reporting over the years to Quiet Skies of Long Island, to your group EHRC. State Assemblyman Walker Leslie was keeping track back in the day. I've sent letters out to Senator Schumer, Senator Gillibrand, Tim Bishop, Lee Zeldin. So I've been trying to keep them apprised of what's going on from my perspective, different from the Brookhaven perspective. But I always kind of go to the same thing. There's, you know, we all have a reasonable expectation of peace and quiet to sit in our backyard, and this is being violated by the helicopters that pass overhead. I mean, I took pictures because I know it establishes an electronic signal. The biggest problems I've had over the years is there seems to be a chronic violator. I don't know who it is. Dark green fuselage, 3 lime green stripes. Chronic violator that I reached out to somebody at the FAA. He told me that over a couple of different complaints that, you know, these things within the altitude, accepted altitude. I had asked him to reach out to the specific chronic violator, and that's where I broke off contact with the guy. I could provide you his name. Okay, wrapping up. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of respectable people here as I wrap up. We all know that, I don't say we all know, but I know military aircraft emit an identifying signal. I'd be more than willing to, if there's some type of thing available, whereas a helicopter passes overhead, if we can shoot some type of beam at him that, you know, all the aircraft talk to each other, IFF type of stuff, and we can record from each area who the violators are, and at least address the violators, you know, on an individual basis. So, thank you very much.
So can I just so you know, there is information that you can get on who's who. I mean, the air noise report itself goes off little transponders that people have installed that will read the transponder on the helicopter that will give all that information. You can also, that's real time. You can also go to FlightAware. I mean, Teresa could tell you, she knows all of them. There's 5 or 6 different flight tracking softwares that you can get in. Those are time-based because it's actually a commercial and they're not supposed to be real time. So it's a 10-minute, so you can get a lot of that information. Shooting a laser, I would stay away from that. I'd stay away from that conversation because, yeah. All right, I'm just letting you know there's stuff out. None of the civilian, I'm former military as well. None of the civilian aircraft have IFF. IFF is a blocker that would tell another person with IFF, identify friend or foe. So.
When you say that, let me follow up real quick. I don't know, I heard people here, the drummers before about.
Turn the transponder off.
Turn their transponders off?
Helicopters can turn the transponders off. I will tell you, there's absolutely no reason for them to turn it off.
So if,
Okay.
I just wanted to ask a question. You know, there's so many people here that are frustrated in following this. Why isn't the Eastern Regional Helicopter tracking violators, tracking what people are doing, making sure that people are flying neighborly? Why is that? You know, I mean, these people are dedicating hours and hours of their life because their quality of life is being interrupted. Why aren't you policing the association that you're working with and following up on them? Because we're hearing person after, but we're hearing person after person saying, you know, the helicopters are flying low. They're not flying appropriately. And so what repercussions is there that occurs with these helicopter pilots that are not flying as they should be? And who goes after them?
We do. We police ourselves.
And
Because it's a volunteer program, so we have to police ourselves. And every pilot that starts off in a air tour company or a charter company wants to get to the next better job. And if they get the reputation inside of this, we support 97% of the operators in the New York area. And if it gets out that we have a cowboy or anything like that, it's taken care of. We call their management. We don't have any time for it. Everybody in my organization understands how important an issue this is. So to go back to the other point is, why don't we do anything about it? I think a lot of the people that have already stood up at the podium have said that they know me, that we correspond. And I know people at this table right here, I correspond with quite a bit. They may not get all the answers, that I may not give them what they want, but I do correspond. I do answer questions. They still may not think I'm telling the truth, but I tell them the truth. And so the fact that we don't do it, I don't know if that's exactly accurate. For one reason, we're here today, and when we do these meetings all the time.
Mike Foley.
This is my first one in Riverhead this year.
Kathy McGraw and Kathy O'Brien.
switch off and flick it back on again to interrupt the flight, and that's done intentionally, as I was told by an FAA representative, because of the fact, if there is an issue and there's a blip in the system, that pilot won't be, let's just use the word,
Violated.
discipline, yeah. So, again, there's a huge problem here, and these people are very frustrated. And the message to tell the pilots, because from what I'm seeing now that we're back into GE airspace, these guys are doing what they want, okay? It's in GE airspace. As soon as they hit Riverhead, something like that, boop, all of a sudden a little signal goes off, and as they get closer, boop, there they show up. So I'm just gonna, that's all I gotta say about that.
Are you finding that in your tracking, if you track them? Does that show up?
The reason it falls off on the farther part of the east end is because the radar that's based in Islip is a cone, and it goes like this, and as they make a descent into East Hampton, they go outside of the radar coverage, which will be fixed, because in January 1 of 2020, every aircraft operating in the United States, or especially in the Northeast, is gonna have ADS-B, and we're gonna know who is everybody, transponder or not, they're gonna know, because they
Okay,
have
so
to have ADS-B.
and that includes in
January
VFR
1.
airspace.
January 1.
In VFR airspace. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Mike Foley. Myself and my wife Barbara live in Reeves Park, Riverhead, which is, if I can illustrate with this, right about there, which is about 5 miles west of my good friend John, and who's been doing a great job fighting a good fight in Iron Pier. In this day of alternative facts, Jeff, I just want to make sure that we're dealing with the proper set of facts. Is the average flight from JFK or Queens to East Hampton 40 minutes?
No, it's less. It's New York City. And it's more 40 to 50 minutes. The smaller ones are more like 50 minutes, and the faster, heavier ones are 38 to 40 minutes.
Okay. And the average flight for a one-way economy flight is about $800 for a one-way trip?
I do not go.
Yes.
I do not go into pricing.
Okay.
I work for a non-for-profit organization.
Sure. Well,
and
Jeff,
it's absolutely no-go.
Actually, you should know because you're representing those people, so you should know what the average price is.
No,
I did about 10 minutes worth of research
Okay.
before I got here.
Okay.
And the cheapest flight I could find was $800 for a 39-minute flight to East Hampton. So for people here that think we're going to shut down the airport, it's not going to happen. Okay, this is the 1% versus the 99%. The people of privilege who can afford to pay this amount, flying over the people that have to burden themselves with that noise. We hear about safety. Health is a safety issue. And every person in this room that hears a helicopter flying over their head is increasing their blood pressure, their anger, and everything else. So people want to talk about helicopters crashing. I want to talk about heart attacks that are caused by the helicopters that are flying over that. So let's just again get back to, you're fortunate enough to be dealing with a clientele that is in the top 1%. So giving that as a baseline for your profit margins, if we took an all-water route that took 9 more minutes on a 40-minute flight, you're talking about 18% more in time. You could bump that $800 up to the $1,000 that these people can afford to pay and eliminate all of this just by raising your prices and making sure that everybody flies over the Long Island Sound that's taking the North Shore route. If you did that, you'd keep your margins. The people would still have a good time. It would inconvenience them an extra 9 minutes, but you'd keep your margins. The $200 is tip money at the golf club that they fly out here to do. It is not a big deal. So you have the answers here. It's just a matter of having the reason to do it. And apparently you don't have a reason to do it. So I'm going to give you a reason right now. This country is based on civil disobedience. There was a great movie that ended up the frustration by saying, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. And there was a great president about 30 years ago that spoke about 1,000 points of light. What would it be like if the people who are inconvenienced showed their protest by shining that light up on the ground every time a helicopter came across their property. What would that be like to you? Would it be an inconvenience, Jeff? Or would it be a safety issue?
It'd be a safety issue.
Okay,
And
so
you'd go to
if
jail.
you have
And
a s-
And you would go to jail, just so
Well-
you know, and you'd go to jail.
Well, it's good to know that. It's good to know that jail could be the alternative. What other alternative do we have for civil disobedience? Other than to come up here and say, we are mad as hell, and we are not going to take this anymore. Change your routes, increase your prices, and do what the 99% are telling you to do. Thank you.
My name's Kathy McGraw. I live at 24 North Walk, which is at Northville Beach, just about a half mile from the tanks. You've heard the frustration of all the people in this room. There have been meetings, there have been complaints, ongoing, never-ending. There's a route that would eliminate all the problems of the people in this room. We've heard nothing from anyone who lives at Orient. We have no evidence that, other than you're saying there would be a duplication of noise if they went out around the end. You could alleviate the problems of all these very frustrated people. And I would ask you, will you commit tonight to have your group adopt the all-water route around Orient Point? Will you do that for us?
I will not commit that tonight.
Why not?
Because I don't answer. I have a board of directors. There's a process that this happens.
Will you make a
And I
recommendation?
have 4 pages of notes that go
Will
in
you
back when I
make-
get to Orient Point. I've heard
Will
it.
you make a recommendation that for the welfare of the people in this room and on the North Fork, that water route be adopted? Will you make that recommendation?
There's nothing that's not on the table.
Raise your prices and keep your margins. How hard is this?
You won't make the recommendation?
We're talking about Walmart here. We're talking about the top 1%. Do your job.
All right, let's just stick to the speaker at the podium.
Will you make the recommendation? It's pretty clear that this is the right thing to do.
We're gonna spend the next 4 months going over what our plan for next year is.
We've gone over it
not
forever.
committing to it, I'm
Make the
sorry.
recommendation. Thank you.
Jeff, do you support an all-water route? If you're not making the recommendation, do you support an all-water route?
I don't believe going around Orient Point's gonna fix the problem. And right now, they come out the North Shore route and they go back to the South Shore route. We've already committed
So
that.
you don't support an all-water route?
I don't believe it's gonna work around the
But you
point.
personally, do you or
Orient Point,
do
no.
you do not?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
My name's Kathy O'Brien, and unfortunately, I'm very depressed. I spent some time writing some things up here to share, and a lot of it has been said, so I don't know if I'm going to bore everybody with repeating so much of what has been said, but it is depressing. I hope you don't mind the use of hyperbole, helicopters, small jets, seaplanes, enemy aircraft are using the North Fork as a doormat to the Hamptons. Because I live in and under the first transition route, my life is hell. I've thought about moving, as one of my neighbors has talked about. Why should I have to leave a beautiful place? Quick background. I built my home over 25 years ago in Laurel, in the woods, surrounded by open land, to raise our family in the peace and quiet of natural, tranquil environment. We enjoy the sounds and sights of nature. We don't enjoy the sounds and sights, again, hyperbole, of enemy aircraft. Back in May 2016, Mr. Smith, you were quoted in News 12, East Hampton Press, Suffolk Times, and you said, the proposed transition routes to and from the mandatory North Shore route have been carefully analyzed to attempt to significantly reduce the noise impact for the residents on the North Fork. That's a quote from you. You further said, the new routes are over the least
built-up area on the North Fork. My question to you right now is my quality of life and the people in this room any less important than yours or somebody that lives in a more populated area?
No.
Okay. So how could you, when you're talking about a less populated area, the least populated area is the all-water route. Okay, I am annoyed when I'm out on my sailboat, when I'm out on my power boat, and aircraft is going over. But that's not as bad as when you violate me in my outdoor shower. I'm not kidding. I feel violated. When I take an outdoor shower, I am watching the aircrafts going over me. So it needs to be all over the water. As of the summer of 2016, my quality of life has been damaged, radically reduced, completely upended. At this point, I saw this sign, so I'm not going to play it, but all I do is stand like this with my iPhone, and I record the noises that my family and my neighbors need to listen to. So I was going to play that right now on the microphone. You wouldn't be able to hear what I have to say.
Well, go ahead, play it.
It's over there.
I got a few
So
for
wha-
you.
while-
I got a few for you.
While I was going to read this, that's what I was going to do. But I can't even enjoy being outside my home. Okay, all right, so let me wrap it up. I selected an arbitrary Thursday, not a weekend, a Thursday, August 22nd. Purposely spent the entire day in my neighborhood area. 81 trips, and some of them were return trips because I looked on the app that shows me the flight path of the aircraft. 81. That started at around 7 a.m. till when I couldn't take it anymore. This is not an anomaly. Right? I had a question. Can I just ask one quick question? When you were talking about the transponders, obviously you answered the question about being able to shut it off. The other question I have is, what about the safety when those are off? Like, what's going on when a transponder is shut off? So you're in flight, you've got helicopters, jets, and seaplanes, and the transponder's not on. Is there some kind of safety issue there?
All it is not sending out the information to the radar where ATC can get it.
Okay, so it's got nothing to do with communication between the planes or anything like that?
No, they do that on
Okay,
an actual radio.
Okay, I just want to
And yes, and January 1st, 2020, it's going to be automated.
Okay. I know you've said many things. I'm just going to say I'm asking for your support to scrap the North Shore route, that it should be a South Shore route. It needs to be all over the water. And if you can't fix it, then we need to shut it.
John Carano, Jim Harmon, David Darrow, and Pat Schneider.
And I just want to ask, Jeff, you know, when we talk about volume, what would be considered an excessive volume over one area?
See, I cannot get a number that's volume. My point with the noise complaints was that it was helicopters flew over my house at a high rate of volume. That is dependent on each and every person that will make. Some people it may be 1, or it may be 10.
But
I mean, John
we have
read
someone
off
says
all of
when
it.
someone says 81 or 100, do you consider that a high rate of volume over a house?
On a Thursday. I think it's a lot.
So what would
And
you
it's-
consider
and-
not
And it's
not very
Thursday
much?
afternoon. It's not that I'm not surprised that there was 81 going out there on a Thursday afternoon on August 22nd. Thursday nights, Friday nights, Sunday nights, Monday mornings. I know when the peak times are.
But would 20 be considered a high volume? But you're the council, right? So you're the council. You do set some parameters. You deal with helicopters all the time. You deal with creating an industry that is friendly, neighborhood friendly. What would you consider a volume over a house to be excessive?
But it's not something that we can control.
I'm not saying control or not.
I don't have a number.
10?
I don't have a number for you.
10?
I have more than that going over my house in New Jersey.
20?
Before you bought your house.
But 20? I'm just saying.
I don't have a number.
Hi, good evening. John Corain. I live on the Tony South Fork. I never realized you people were up here on the North Fork. We didn't know you were here. But trying to keep this a little light. I've been at this for 10 years. I've been at airport protests. I've been part of the civil disobedience activity that one of the gentlemen referred to. I think one of the things I'd just like to bring to your attention is that there is no such thing as an all-water route. An all-water route applies that the airport's on the water. East Hampton Airport is not on the water. It's inland. And Jeff's well aware of this, that the constituents who own the airport, the residents of East Hampton, have been the beneficiaries of this past summer of your misery. So if you look at the route maps this year, there's been a conscious effort to divert traffic away from the residents of East Hampton, who will in the very near future be voting on the future of that airport. If anybody's not aware of the term grant assurances, I encourage the elected officials here, I think probably all are, but within the next couple of years, the town of East Hampton is going to have to decide the future of that airport. There's a very strong effort underway by East Hampton town residents to close that airport, because the economics of it, while it seems like it should be a very profitable venture for the town of East Hampton, it is not. All the revenue that's accrues to the airport goes back into the airport. So in other words, if you're a normal taxpayer in the town of East Hampton, you're not getting any benefit out of it. The great lie told to the residents of East Hampton, in my view, my humble opinion, is that the East Hampton Airport creates a great economic value. People have been going to East Hampton and Southampton long before there were helicopters flying to it. If those helicopters don't fly into East Hampton Airport, the gentleman who's got that big helicopter that many of us know that flies over, one of the great offenders, he's still going to his 60-acre estate in Sagaponack. But I would encourage you all to first of all, I applaud you all for coming out, and thank you to the elected representatives here for getting these forums together. I think there's a window of opportunity that is opening for you to continue to voice your frustration. I would respectfully submit that subjecting Mr. Smith to it it's not going to do any good. I mean, he's here on behalf of an organization that makes a lot of money from this. And as the maps will show, there's absolutely no regard for your safety, for the property values that you have here, or for anything really related to you here on the North Fork, nor a large part of the South Fork. But I would encourage you to work, and this message I would give to the elected officials here, to work with the elected officials in the other East End towns, to apply pressure to the elected officials in the town of East Hampton to make an appropriate decision for the future of that airport, and to let people know that there are alternative uses for that airport. It is not a foregone conclusion that airport will remain open. You know, it's like cut off the head of the snake. That airport was built for small recreational flyers. It was not built to become a cottage industry that serves not the 1%, but the 1/100th of 1%. So it's a couple of hundred people that are abusing thousands and thousands of people. So elected officials, I would ask you to get together with Southampton Town and Southold Town and the East End towns and really sit down with the elected officials in East Hampton and say what you're hearing from your constituents. You're fed up, you're not going to take it anymore, and that this is a disgrace. So, but there are many kindred spirits with you on the South Fork, so keep up the good work.
And just so that you do know that the mayors and supervisors for the East End towns do get together, and I think tend to have the same opinion of this.
Good evening. My name's Jim Harmon. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm a Southold resident and outside counsel to the town of Southold on this particular issue. Jeff and I have never met. We've had conversations. They've been very cordial. They've been very professional, and I'd like to continue along those lines, no matter what I have to say here tonight. But one of the things I heard here was, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you have the authority to establish the transition routes to and from the North Shore route. Did I understand that correctly?
Those transition routes are voluntary routes that the Eastern Region Helicopter Council comes up with.
That's right. And your pilots and operators and members follow your recommendations. Is that what takes place? I'm sorry, you're nodding.
Look at the lines. You can look.
I mean, you're nodding your head. Does that mean yes?
Yes.
And you mentioned a lot of people have been concerned about 50-50, and they really, I have to say, doubt that flights are 50-50. What's the basis of your saying it's 50-50?
I actually get reports from the town of East Hampton on the routes every weekend.
Well, I've gotten reports from the FAA. You're familiar with PEDAR's reports, aren't you?
Yes, I do.
And one of them has been displayed here. The supervisor displayed one earlier showing North Shore routes versus South Shore routes, correct? I mean, you saw that. If you could put that back up. You know, we have asked for that information from the FAA. The FAA has told us that last year in 2018, 80% of helicopters flew over the North Fork. In 2016, 62% of all helicopter flights to and from East Hampton went over the town of Southold and the North Fork. I've been advised by the FAA, who has sent me reports for this past Memorial Day weekend and July 4th weekend. It basically shows the same thing. They're in the process of calculating at this point. In my opinion, it looks like at least 70% of the flights to and from East Hampton are passing over the North Fork, principally over the town of Southold. So I told you I'd give you the results of whatever the FAA came up with. And what you're going to see is that it's 50-50 is definitely not working. That's definitely not happening. And you should change the matrix of your decision-making because you're operating under a false premise. And I wouldn't say that anymore to people, that it's 50-50, because in fact, it is not 50-50. The other thing I'd like to point out is, or ask you this question, the sole reason that you're not flying around Plum Island is because it would create a double sound event. Is that the idea?
I believe so.
And flying around Plum Island would create a double sound event, and that's your reason for not flying around Plum Island. Is that it?
I believe so.
And my question is this. That's your judgment. That's not the judgment of the people of the North Fork. That's not the judgment of Supervisor Russell. It's not the judgment of Senator Schumer. What gives you the right to superimpose your judgment on the report and will of the people and their representatives? Why don't you just do what they ask you to do?
Yeah.
They'll take their chances. And your chance is to be the hero and not the villain. Thank you.
I think I said that. Why don't you try it? Why don't you have an
Hi, folks. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I usually try to be better prepared, but today, as it turned out, I was spending more time phoning in helicopter complaints than actually compiling something to read here. So what I did do was I tried to key in and maybe learn a little bit about our guest this evening, who is Jeff Smith. And it turns out he's quite a rock star. As it turns out, in 2017, I got this off the web, where we know all the the good, true information is. Anyway, the National Business Aviation Association has what they call a Silk Scarf Award. And in their words, it's given to individuals for special contributions to the business aviation community during their careers. And it said, the NBAA recently presented its Silk Scarf Award to Jeff Smith, former chairman of the Eastern Region Helicopter Council, get this, for his efforts on behalf of the business aviation community. Jeff received the Silk Scarf for his selfless work on helicopter issues in the New York metro area, including his long and arduous work mitigating routes, curfews, and restrictions at Hampton Airport, while continuing to advocate on behalf of business aviation. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Now, the question I have is, given that, and given in the FAA's description as they went through some of the other pages I was reading, we're obviously in an adversarial role here. You have not come here to benefit us, because this is a long-standing issue. This has been going on for years. And I'll give you an example. It said, according to airport records from January to September 2014, there were 22,350 takeoffs and landings at the East Hampton Airport. And over the same time frame, there were 22,700 complaints logged about excessive noise. That's even more than there were takeoffs and landings. And that's back in 2014. That's 5 years ago. And we have had a considerable increase from that time, and I think even you would agree with me on that point. And still nothing has been done. And after all these years, this is the first time that I think that you've come here to talk to us about this. So, I'm wondering what handwriting is on the wall that's bringing you here now, and I'm really not too sure what it's going to be. Also read, it says it's starting today, August 6th, which is from 2012, the North Shore mandatory for all helicopter transitioning along the North Shore. FAA mandate requires pilots to maintain an altitude of at least 2,500 feet. I'm going to kind of call BS on that one, I'm afraid, Jeff, because I'm really pretty sure that they're not doing that. And I think that if they would, 95% of those pilots would not be switching off their transponders somewhere around Shoreham before they come over here. And I know that because I watch my computer and I see a little helicopter picture go and then it's gone. And I can't see how, I can't see who it was, I can't see the helicopter type, and I cannot see how high they are. But I know how low they are when they come over my house, so I'm pretty much up on that. Also, from the FAA's report, between 5 and 10% of the helicopters in the United States are twin-engine vehicles. They estimate that over 70% of the vehicles flying here on the east end of Long Island are twin-engine. That means that they are the loudest machines that money can buy, one of which is that nice big Sikorsky S-92A that Ira Rennet owns, and that big black one with the starboard-facing horizontal stabilizer. He is the loudest, and you have absolutely no control over him or Ron Perlman's S-76 Sikorsky. Oh, really? Okay. And they go both ways. Okay. Thanks very much for your time. Great to have you here today. Your best efforts would be spent going to East Hampton like I did last week. They're really nice. They let me speak and ramble on for 6 minutes. They were very, very responsive, and they are having an election this year, and they will have to decide next year to close the airport. And that is going to be, in my humble opinion, your one opportunity to silence the skies, is to close that airport.
Hi, I'm Pat Snyder. I live at Corwell Avenue in Riverhead. I want to thank the task force for all the work you've done, and Mr. Smith for being here today and taking the hot seat. I don't expect that you're hearing anything new or anything unexpected. I think you probably had a good idea when you came in here what you were going to hear. So my question to you is, tomorrow morning on October 2nd, what is your plan? What are you going to do for everyone?
5 pages of notes. I'm going back. We're going to sit down with the board and the people that plan our operation, using the East Hampton Airport manager, the air traffic control people, the TRACON, everybody we can get together that we do this plan every year and figure out what our options are and what we can best do. That's why I'm here.
So you're going to create an action plan?
That's why I'm here.
Do you have a timeline on that? Can you give us a timeline?
We usually hope to have it out by March, was when we do our Fly Neighborly meeting, but it's probably it usually runs into April.
And will any elected officials be invited to address the board?
Every Fly Neighborly kickoff meeting we've had, we've invited elected officials,
To address the board?
noise affected, everybody.
To address the board? We'll be getting an invitation to address the board?
The board will be at the Fly Neighborly meeting. The board, this is a board meeting that I'm gonna go and, I'm gonna write all this up and.
No, but when you're
Share it
saying
with
that you're gonna go back and assess and see what you'll do for next year, changes that you'll make, so the people that are sitting as the board to make that decision, will the elected officials from the East Bend be invited to address the board, to bring our concerns to the board?
Can do that.
Thank you.
I have one last card, Kevin D'Amato.
Thanks for putting the form together. Appreciate everybody who came out and spoke. I'm not very optimistic. I don't think the helicopter industry is going to voluntarily give up something that is making them boats loads of money. The only possibility we have to end this is to close the airport, and I was wondering if there's anything Riverhead can do as a town to try to expedite that eventuality, that closing of that airport.
I think what we do is, it's up to the town of East Hampton, but as officials from the town of Riverhead, we can communicate with our concerns and what we would like to see with the officials from East Hampton as they wrestle with their decisions.
We have gone to other towns and spoken. I actually attended a Southampton Village meeting and spoke on the behalf of the town, and I'm happy to go out to East Hampton and speak on behalf of the town and the task force.
Because there's no mediating the problem. It's just gonna get worse. We understand that, right? And there is no all-water route. The helicopters are never gonna come from the east end into Long Island, because the money there and the power that they have, he's not gonna inconvenience his own customers by coming in that way. So we're the only way in. So unless we shut that airport, I don't think we have any expectation that this noise is gonna stop anytime soon. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie Figurniak, 20 Plain East, Bating Hollow. I'm actually going to stray a little bit based on things that were said to here. Jeff, you said you were going to go back to your board and discuss your options. Where's our options? So far, we have no option other than a hearing, and over the years, they go nowhere for us. What about restricting new companies? There's Blade, there's all these new apps, there's the seaplanes. I mean, isn't there some way you can limit how many companies of this type start with the apps? And limit the flights?
That is 100% not in our purview.
Okay.
To decide who flies and what, who
Okay.
can be in business, who cannot.
Okay, so, then, earlier you said that there's consideration for us, the people here on the North Fork, and that the pilots care. So why not just fly the South Shore route? If you're showing consideration for us and the pilots care, then fly the South Shore route. Simple. There are many days where the ocean is sunny and the North Shore is cloudy and hazy. Why do I have to listen to a constant hum for 4 hours straight? I can't sit in my backyard, my house. I can have the shower on, I can have the TV on, I can AC on. I still hear the helicopters. There's a non-stop hum for 4 hours on specific days. From the one goes by, you hear it a minute or more now before it flies over. You hear it trail a minute after. Then the next one comes. There's literally no break for hours and hours. So why do I have to listen to that? Why does everybody here have to listen to that? Why does my house have to vibrate? Why does my neighbor's house have to vibrate? Her deck, her glasses in her cabinet vibrate. I've had cabinets fall off my wall because a helicopter went by. So I can't even sit in our backyard. We have to adjust our conversations. We have to stop our conversations. Our neighbors house to house. We can't talk while the helicopter goes over. We have a beach in my community. I can't even go to the beach and enjoy a sunset without constant helicopters overhead. There's just literally no break. The only break we actually got this summer was when Hurricane Dorian was out over the Atlantic. Why does it take a hurricane off the South Shore of Montauk to give us the peace and quiet that we used to have 10 years ago? It's not fair, something, we need relief. Anything short of that is unacceptable. Thank you.
That's everybody. I just want to thank all of the elected officials and their representatives for showing up, for our task force, for all their work, and for keeping this on the front burner, because it's such an overwhelming problem for our community. To Jeff for coming to listen to us. I will be waiting the invitation to address the board as well as the other elected officials out here. We would like some data. You said that you will provide us with the helicopters that have gone over. If you have the height of the helicopters also would be appreciated. You can hear the frustration in our residents' voice. You know, they are coming to you for some relief. You have the ability to grant that relief through changing the transition patterns and going through an all-water route. So we are asking you for that relief and for you to be able to do that when you reevaluate for next year. So we hope that you'll take heed in what we said. You know, it's gone from the fact that we were asking for help to that we need the airport to be closed. And there seems to be nothing in between. So we need you to take a look at that and come back and provide us with some information. So thank you.